Why did you need to cut off a friend? I feel in most of my friendships, I'm the one doing most of the legwork. For some, it's an easy decision, so say, I'll just stop. Clearly, I'm the one maintaining this relationship alive. I think it was my therapist who told me, when I complained to him about this, that maybe my friends are just happy that I'm so proactive and then don't feel the need to contact me, because they rely on me, that I will call or write eventually, maybe. The past months, I've pondered what to do about a friend back home across the Atlantic. I've lived almost 20 years in Europe, actually my new home, and for that period of time, it's been only me maintaining a relationship with a friend. During I didn't write to her, kind of as a test. For about 2 or 3 years, we had no contact. Finally, I was able to fly to my family and contacted her. Want to meet? Sorry, I'm busy. Really? Like, I know you're a single mother, but we haven't seen each other in years. And all you can say is you're busy? Another friend, same week, also hadn't seen him in 3 or more years. His wife was about to give birth, and he made 2 hours time for me. A few days after the birth, we met at his house, had lunch, walked around, said goodbye again at his place. 2 hours. I'm not asking for more. Some people like putting in the work. Others go with the flow. If they're doing it with others but not you, I think that's the bigger indicator. Story 2. My best friend in high school was a chick. She dated one of my other buddies through high school. When I first met her, I had wanted to date her, but she liked my buddy, so I moved on. Well, later on, I introduced her to my buddy, and she introduced me to her friends. I had a blast. Several years go by when we graduate. My buddy and my best friend go to college together and move in together. I go somewhere else. They don't do well together and break up. By this point, I have a girlfriend. She's great, and she gets along with best friend. Several more years pass, and we're still friends. She gets married, gets pregnant, has some great kids, and looks to be having an awesome life. I also got married and had kids, and anyway. Well, then we were having a conversation about how things turned out, how cool it was that we were still friends after so long. And she turns to me and says she made a bad mistake back in the day. She should have slept with me and had kids with me, so I would marry her and we would grow old together. She said this while rubbing her hand on my thigh. My wife and kids, her husband and kids, were in a different room. She took her chance 8 years too late. If she had asked before dating my buddy, maybe. However, I love my family and my wife, so it was a no-brainer. She insisted and tried to kiss me. I said no. I finished out the evening and went home and haven't talked to her since. That was 8 years ago. She was my friend and tried to get me to cheat on my wife, while also cheating on her husband, while also telling me she should have trapped me when we were in high school. The person who I thought had been my best friend, who I thought had known, was actually a terrible person. Story 3. We were friends for 8 years. And on top of making everyone I brought him around viscerally uncomfortable, he got accused of mistreatment. It's weird. He didn't need to tell me because I had no connection to those people or the girl in question, but he did. He made sure to paint himself as the victim and her as the liar. I believed him. Then I took him with me to a house party and had one beer and thought it would be hilarious to wrap his arms around some girl's ankles while refusing to let go while everyone demanded he stop. Until he felt like letting go. I'd never seen this side of him as most of our relationship was one-on-one, so it was pretty damn surprising, concerning, and a bit frightening to witness. Not to mention mortifying. He started saying stuff like, dirty girl, to describe a woman who rejected him for being a creep. Total crap. I would call him hysterical, telling him he can't talk about women like that, and he would argue and act like it was no big deal. Then he got accused again, and again. I couldn't bury myself in denial anymore. The guy I thought was a kind, mild-mannered, misunderstood person was a narcissistic incel at best and some kind of criminal at worst. Story 4. All we ever damn did was go to karaoke at night, get hammered. She got into fights. I babysat her, and we were both hungover all the next day. I begged her to do things during the day. Lunch, the beach, events, anything. I was so tired of drinking myself and protecting her dumb, violent, intoxicated self, so I just stopped going. After the third night didn't show, she called to yell at me about how I never want to do anything. I reminded her of the several texts asking to do things during the day. Then she did something stupid while intoxicated. Had a very public ugly cry panic breakdown, called every person we know and told them I abandoned her at the bar or something, and whatever she did was my fault somehow. We were damn 30 years old. A mutual friend and her mother were angry with me to the point of telling me off via text. About 3 months later, her mom calls me in tears, begging me to help her daughter. I gave her phone numbers and I said I was not going to be involved. Story 5. Because they were the biggest narcissists known to man. Some examples include constantly referring to themselves as iconic, gorgeous, a legend, a celebrity, posting 700 selfies with a filter every day, clearly thinking people are obsessed with them. They would call me constantly just to talk about themselves. When I would speak, they would yawn or interrupt me or just start texting on their phone and ignoring me altogether. They talked crap about other people and were really nasty to strangers, acting very entitled. They had no empathy and did not take accountability for the nasty behavior. Nothing was ever their fault. They were perfect, and it was everyone else who was the problem. They were very shallow, vain, and only wanted to hang around pretty people. They used people to social climb. I can go on, but basically every symptom of narcissist personality disorder they had. Story 6. A few years ago, a friend was asking for money every once in a while. He would pay me back within a few days, a week at most. His checks always cleared, so I didn't think much of it. Then a few months later, I found out he had been admitted to the hospital. I also found out that I was not the only one he was asking to borrow money from. He recovered just fine, thank God. I could not continue to hang out with him after this. It was not my fault what happened to him, but by giving him cash, I was unknowingly associated with his bad habits that almost cost him his life. I told him after a few weeks of recovery that he had betrayed my trust and I needed time away from him. He understood. Around a year later, he was on his way to graduating from his rehabilitation. Part of his journey was to reach out to people he had wronged. He contacted me and apologized. I accepted it and was, and still am, happy for him for cleaning up his act. But I made it known that I'm never giving him cash again. Lol. Story 7. We became very fast friends in college and were inseparable. Our morals, humor, and vision aligned perfectly, and I genuinely believe there couldn't be a better friend in the whole wide world. During our time in college, we went through a lot of issues. Family, relationship, health, finance, and I did my best to stick with her. I spent as much time with her as I could to help her out in every way possible. She was always very grateful for it. My entire life I've been a huge people pleaser. I just can't say no to anyone. She pointed out how people just wanted to use me for that very reason, and stuck with me, saying no in my stead. And I was over the moon. No one had ever stood up for me like that, until I said no to her. I just got married and moved in with my husband, who lives in a joint family. I had major physical and mental health issues. I was in the hospital for longer than I was at home. I got diagnosed with depression and was struggling through an identity crisis. I spent months in bed, speaking to no one. No one at all. And all this time, my friend was nowhere because she was occupied with her postgraduate exams. And I had no issues with that. She had her life to live. Just because I was stuck didn't mean she had to be stuck as well. Once her exams were over, she dropped me a text. She wanted to meet. I told her I needed time to gather myself. I'd only recently begun to come to terms with the major life changes I'd faced. I had a lot on my plate, and no time to meet. I proposed we do a video call, but no. She wanted to meet in person. I tried talking to her, asked her if everything was all right, if anything was wrong at all. Everything was perfectly fine. She just wanted to meet me. So she wanted me to drive to the other end of the city to meet her. She wouldn't come to me. After I knew for sure that everything was all right and there was nothing urgent, I told her no. I told her I had a lot that I needed to do for myself and was unable to make time. She snapped. All of a sudden, I was a pathetic friend. I never considered her feelings. I was absolute trash. Given the vulnerable mental health, I began spiraling again. I started believing I was a crappy person. For a week straight, I cried every night, thinking my poor actions had led to this fallout between us. My husband was my rock through all this. He let me cry all that I needed, held me all night, and constantly reassured me that I had done nothing wrong. It took me weeks to realize that I had indeed not done anything wrong. So I decided to set things straight. We had an amazing friendship, and I didn't want any sort of misunderstandings, if there were any, to change that. So I told her we should meet. And she refused. She didn't want to anymore. I gave her time. I thought maybe my refusal to meet her put her off. I gave her time. But for months, she refused to meet me. I gave up on trying to meet and talk and decided to just call and set things straight. Easy, right? No. It was the worst phone call ever. For 30 minutes straight, she ranted about how all I cared about was me. About how I was the most selfish person ever. How I was the one who created this distance between us. I wanted to say a lot. I wanted to mention how it was me who got her through college. It was me who paid for all her lunches and dinners when she didn't want to burden her family. How I, on the day of my wedding, left everything and went to her place because she had a fight with her sister. And I didn't mean to rub it in her face. I didn't do anything special. Because that's what friends do. They stick with you. I wanted to ask her why she was never there when I was going through the worst time of my life. But that would have been pointless. In almost a year, she had never asked me how I was doing, how things were on my end. I wanted to say so much, but I didn't. Everything she said to me left me no space for me to even try and speak. So I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. It's been 2 years. There are times when I wonder how she is, how her family is. I know I don't have the mental capacity to correct the image of me that she has built in her mind. And I'm not sure she wants it to be corrected either. So I say a little prayer for her and move on. Story 8. She was cruel. Yes, I was her friend between the ages of 11 and 16, so I know this sounds extreme, but she actually displayed all the signs of an oppressor. She manipulated me and lied to me, gaslit and guilt-tripped me constantly, called me names sometimes and insulted me, would turn all my friends against me if she perceived any wrong from me, straight up pestered and alienated me for a year, took advantage of me and guilt-tripped me some more when I started having trauma responses around her, and then would flip to a nice and caring friend at random, especially when I'd pull away and take me right back in. Eventually, an altercation happened where I was in gym class while injured without a doctor's note, and she yelled at me for not participating in the game to her satisfaction, i.e. running full speed like everyone else. Because my injury was hidden under my clothes and accused me of lying even though the gym teacher himself okayed me to take it easy, as long as I was participating. Then she hunted me down after class and told me we were going to have a serious talk because my behavior has to stop, like a disappointed parent scolding their child and making an insult to my intelligence. I'm really insecure about that because I'm autistic, and anyone who knows me knows to never go there. Then she strung me along with fake apologies and crap when I got really upset, and then turned around and made it out like I was the one who was causing trouble and didn't want to fix what happened. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat down a little over a month later and ended the friendship. The last time I spoke to her, she tried the whole guilt-tripping me for avoiding her and talking down to me like a parent does their child. And I flatly informed her that I don't think she knows me anymore and walked away. She tried pestering me via text and email. I had blocked her on social media, so she couldn't try that. And I fell through because I didn't respond. I'm 24 now. I've been through worse and have grown up. I've managed to heal, and distancing myself from my classmates really helped. If you're reading this and know who you are, I know that I was toxic too. I was young and immature and dramatic and didn't treat you so well either. And I'm sorry. I hope you're well, and I hope you got therapy and learned how to properly treat people with love and respect, but I will never forget how you treated me. I was already going through enough with your baloney, and I wish you never moved to town. I hope to God I never have the misfortune of ever laying eyes on you again. Story 9. Abridged version. A very one-sided friendship. She did all the taking, I did all the giving. She lied about an ex-boyfriend being cruel and lied about her bio dad trying to be cruel to her to gain favors and sympathy. When she told me this, she cried and was able to produce fake tears. She knew I was a softie and leeched off me for food. Fast forward, I pitched in with other people and threw her a pre-wedding party at work. She still didn't invite me to the big day. I was devastated. Her marriage lasted less than 1 year. Then she shacked up with some guy she barely knew and body-trapped him. I cut her off, ignored her, and blocked her. She's a psychopath. I wish I'd never met her. I want to add more details. She only gave me one donut. One singular donut out of all the times I helped her with groceries and getting her lunch and food. Her leeching went on for 2 years. She would leech off me every week, like 3 or 4 out of 7 days. She never texted me to get to know me better or have a fun conversation. Nope, it was always me being her personal refrigerator. One time she had to be absent for a few months due to something bad that happened to her. Her hand or arm was bandaged. She still leeched off of me more than usual, always telling me she was about to cry because she forgot breakfast or lunch or whatever. Then she told me she had no money, which I call BS in retrospect. She said that line many times before she got bandaged. After all I did for her, for 3 weeks or so, she bluntly ignored me and was really unfriendly and cold to me. No hello, no smile, and she gave me a weak apology, saying that she was so stressed out, which I foolishly accepted. Nah, she wasn't stressed. She just wanted to be mean to me. Her ugliness seeped through her pretty face. She was really pretty to look at, but she's ugly to the bone. Really wanted to see the good in her. I guess she never was a good person. I was blindsided at the time. You can see she's a narcissistic psychopath who wants everyone to worship her. She's just like Regina George mixed with Cersei. She thinks she's queen and all the peasants must obey her. Honestly, in retrospect, I felt I was back in high school again when I was around her. The friendship didn't feel like an adult one. It felt so juvenile. Story 10. They lacked respect and felt that they could disrespect me. Generally speaking, that's all it takes. I can accommodate our fallible nature as human beings, but when someone puts me down because they believe that I'm weaker or somehow less than them, it's time to go. This one high school acquaintance of mine had sounded the alarm and asked me to move a few states away because he had fallen in hard times, only to have this person try and pull a fast one and leave me stuck in a strange apartment in a strange state while he attempted to pick up his bags and move across the country with his new girlfriend, after having made plans to travel to North Africa beforehand. I looked that dude straight in the eye and told him he was no longer a welcome person in my life and probably moved out, and gave my job its 2-week notice. Staying in a hotel for the remaining time, I learned a lot from that experience, and I wound up cutting out many more similar people like him when I got back to my home state after having worked and lived in different cities and states. Be kind, but value yourself and know your worth. If you don't set boundaries, you give people a clear signal as to what you're willing to tolerate. I'm guessing the North Africa trip got canceled. Story 11. Kept asking for money every time I visited him so he could buy drinks. Didn't want to hang out, he just wanted to get wasted. Last time we spoke, he called and screamed me out because he gave me an invite to join an exclusive torrenting website a few months prior, and I hadn't logged in 2 weeks. I guess to him at this point, I wasn't grateful. I laughed at him and told him to get off. He passed away about 18 months later. Still irks me to this day that our last conversation was an argument over some trivial crap. He was my absolute closest friend for 30 plus years. I regret having not made amends and not doing enough to convince him to stop self-medicating with drinks. I miss him so much. We were the closest of friends for 30 plus years. Depression and self-medicating got the best of him. Story 12. Not my friend, but my ex-wife's friend. Wife at the time. She was trying to spend some time away from her boyfriend with her baby because he was cruel. A few days into her staying at her house, she invites the son of a witch into my house. The same idiot she was trying to avoid. I kicked him out and told him he wasn't allowed even to the end of my driveway. 3 days later, I'm heading home from work and I'm going to stop at home before I head to our local high school football game. My ex was working with a band at the time. Well, I got this phone call from her friend saying that she came home and the front door was unlocked and open, so I hauled back home. Her mattress was slightly askew, but the only thing missing was my iMac, my external hard drives and all of my software, CD and DVDs. Not even the box with cash in it that was sitting directly behind the iMac. Only the specific things that meant the most to me specifically. I knew exactly what had happened. She wasn't overly concerned and knew exactly what was missing when I got there. The police came, and since we didn't have any security footage, they really couldn't do anything, or at least they couldn't. They kicked her out and it put her on notice that if she or her boyfriend were seen near her house again, it wouldn't be pretty. We lost the entire first 2 years of my son's life in digital photos because they stole not only the computer, but the hard drive backups as well. We managed to get back 80% of them through parents, etc., but this was like 2007, so cloud backups weren't really widespread solutions at the time. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 13. I've cut lots out. One who went to the Navy lied about me to others, like his now wife saying I didn't like her to other friends that I was a user. Another sent me ugly emails from PETA featuring pictures and her husband was covertly hostile to me. Another and another because I would have ruined their relationships by being around him. Another had a weapon to me just for the hell of it one day. Another because he destroyed his mind with substance and went crazy spreading lies about me. Another because he burned our bridge in favor of his military new friends. Another because she turned out to be a crook, defrauding charities and ending roosters because she thinks all roosters are criminals. Another because they eventually revealed that they hate Jews with a passion. All my cousins and aunts because they are all awful human beings. 2 because they were engaged and confessed they wanted to ditch their partners and be with me instead. The rest are much more upsetting, not including stalkers, and I would rather not talk about them. I didn't think my standards are too high. I just think that the standards of people has fallen since before I was born, perhaps. Story 14. He would flake on me a lot in a very disrespectful way, like lying to me. One time we were both on holiday in Thailand and we were supposed to go to another city together, but he told me he was sick and decided to stay. Instead, he went somewhere else at the very last possible minute. I was angry, but decided that was fine and stayed with friends for another year. He was constantly talking down to me, ditching me and speaking quite rudely to me. The last straw was on New Year's Eve and we had plans. I booked a hotel in the city because I lived a good 90 minutes away, but also had free cancellation. I made backup plans because my spice senses were tingling, and again, at the very last minute, he told me he had cold symptoms. Like I could have canceled my $250 accommodation for free, and that schmuck just wasted my time and money. And all he had to do was tell me the day before 2 p.m., sorry, not feeling well. And he had the nerve to get angry when one of his dates canceled at the last minute. That hypocrite. Anyways, I blocked him and everything without an explanation, so I don't know if he tried to contact me again. And while it hurt to let him go, it still does, to be honest. I don't have any friends at all. Being treated like that will no longer be my problem. He got karma, justly deserved. Story 15. She taught me to have boundaries. That is, if someone doesn't bring value or happiness to your life, remove them. She was the first to go. She was the most toxic friend I've ever had. While she taught me my life wasn't over, she would go into my Facebook and make disgusting posts about me, make terrible jokes at my mother's expense, which was ongoing, would tell my 10-year-old all sorts of crap that a child at that age never needs to know. I got the craps when I said, "How would you like it if I did it to your son?" Belittled me because I'm not a speed reader. I read slower than some, especially when studying, because I need a grasp of everything and how it all links together. I was really sick with Crohn's at the time, constantly vomiting 10 to 20 times a day and pain indicator above 10. I could be in so much pain that I would have to call doctors to the motels while we were away for a shot. I helped reduce the pain, but she would still expect me to do whatever we had originally planned, or make me drive the 8 hours home because she didn't like the drive. I got called all kinds of things when I cut that friendship off, because they only saw what she wanted others to see. Only thing I'm grateful for out of that was she pushed my boundaries so far I snapped. I no longer put up with crap from anyone. Story 16. She would always tell me I was her best friend and I meant so much to her and she loved hanging out with me, etc. But would ditch me for everyone else and conveniently forget we had plans when someone else asked to hang out with her. Only time she ever actually went out of her way to seek me out was when her other friends were unavailable. This girl would travel an hour, 2 hours away by bus to see friends she saw often, but would be too tired to whatever she hadn't forgotten about plans to just hang out with me for a little bit. And I drive, so it's not like she had to commute very far to see me. I literally live up the road from her and we worked at the same place for a while. She would also go about saying nasty crap about my boyfriend and put seeds of doubt in my head about him, trying to get me to break up with him. To make it worse, she did the same thing with my last very long-term boyfriend. And then when I eventually did leave him, she chose to be friends with him instead of me. I have a lot of issues with rejection and abandonment. I'm working on it, but this stuff was so toxic for me and my mental health, I just decided I was done and told her we weren't friends anymore. Still have problems I have to work through, but I think I'm taking a healthier route now. Story 17. I was going through one of the worst times of my life. Lost my grandma, who was basically the only family I ever really had that loved me. She was like my mother, because my real mother was and is cruel, neglectful and hateful, and always has been. And it's hardly been there at the same time, and I was homeless, working my back off, doing my online degree, still doing, and processing a huge ton of trauma, manic, depressed. Had a termination, and I reached out to her for help, and she just said, "Oh, sorry," and then carried on talking about how sad she was that she had to change jobs because she didn't like it anymore. I kept trying to support her for so long, and I felt so ignored and hurt that I couldn't carry on being her friend. I confronted her, and she didn't really care. Story 18. Several people had to cut out the past few years. Number 1, I always complained and I was her only friend. Felt like I was friends with JWoww. Anytime I had an opinion or criticism, it just backfired on me. Anytime I was chilling, she'd come back complaining. She was in a cruel relationship or marriage. There was a time my dog passed away and man, I was down bad. I even invited her over for her birthday, but then she got up and left while I was online for school. Comparing how she was more there for my dog than I was there for her daughter. My godchild. Like, which? Number 2, I know he was joking, but had to cut off because he asked for explicit photos as a payment. Just ended up paying him $70 and blocked everything. I may take good photos, but we ain't like that. Number 3, disorganized and messy. So messy. This girl will just secretly sleep with a lot of my friends right behind their back and in their face. Just left out of nowhere and posted on her story after making the smallest thing as a big deal. Number 4, doesn't know how to communicate for her life and is very condescending. Her tone and words were so condescending, like I hated being in duty with her. She's the cousin of number 4. Number 5, introduced this girl to my friends. Got with my ex. I believe she slept with ex-friend number 1, and she told her not to tell me. There were times at the club I heard she ran away or went opposite ways when she knew I was coming. There was a time during Halloween. The group she was with, I was long friends with them and Helen knew them way long before she did. It's like she wanted to be different. Hugged everyone but her and I remember her face, lol. Compared herself to being thick in photos but was very thin in person. Number 6, dated my sister's ex. Stopped sleeping with me for a while, then came back after he found out she cheated on him. That's what he said. He said sorry or whatever, but damage is done. Story 19. Every time I arranged to do something with him, they'd cancel at the last minute. The most recent time was earlier this year. I was driving down to visit my parents, 3.5 hour drive, and was going to meet this friend for dinner as they live near my parents. So I had a small breakfast and didn't really have lunch before setting off. When I was about 40 minutes away, they messaged me to tell me they had eaten and I should go get some food from a service station on my way down. And then they're probably only going to be available for an hour or two as they want to do other things afterwards. They then said they didn't realize we had agreed to go for dinner. They were the one that said they'd try and find us somewhere to go where they could bring their dog. This really annoyed me, as they hadn't eaten so we could go for dinner, and this was maybe their 5th chance I'd given them. So I told them I'll just go home and have dinner with my parents instead, as my dad had already called me and invited me to dinner. I explained my grievances once I had gone home and have not spoken to them since. I made no attempt to apologize either. I just don't have the patience to be messed around like that. Story 20. My best friend in college for a few years. It started small, offhand remarks when someone else complimented me. The guy said a picture of me was a nice picture. She goes, "It doesn't even look like her though." Then when guys would talk to me when we were out, she'd get in front of me and talk to them herself. She'd answer for me when they asked questions, but answer if I was a nonverbal toddler. A guy would mention my dinosaur purse, ask if I was really into dinosaurs. She'd go in before I could answer and say, "Yeah, my name. It's really strange and she's super awkward too. Just my name, things." One night she intoxicatedly told me she hates being my best friend because all the guys like me because I'm prettier. When my ex and I broke up, she said, "I'm actually relieved you guys weren't perfect like I thought you were. Makes me feel better about me and Jake." I spiraled into a depressive state after this breakup. I just needed my friend there. When I went to therapy because it called a hotline, I went on and on about my breakup to my therapist, but she found more interest in my friendship. She asked me if this friend brought anything positive to my life that I didn't get elsewhere, to at least balance out the negatives. I realized she didn't. My therapist told me I did not need her in my life, and I didn't have to keep tending to her and caring for her just because she's my best friend. Anyways, when I cut her off cold turkey in the midst of my recovery, she sent me a crazy long paragraph about how I was a bad friend to her for being distant and that she deserved better. The fact she made it about her when I was literally depressed and needed my friend was all the confirmation I needed. I wanted to add that the friends I have now I would pass away for. They are amazing, uplifting, loving people. I have no room for toxicity anymore, and it's so easy for me now to cut out people that start to rear their ugly head. People say that you're your friends. Based on my friends now, I find that statement to be the best compliment in the world. Story 21. This was my best friend that moved to another state. She insisted on me becoming online friends with her boyfriend. This was because one of our friends was getting married and we were going to get together soon. Around the holidays, she reaches out to me that he can't get a hold of her. In fact, her family or I couldn't. We were all legit concerned, and he told me she was taking motorcycle lessons from some guy who she referred to as an ugly cripple to him. So I reached out to this guy on Facebook, and lo and behold, she texts me, saying she is stressed with school and needs time alone and blah, blah, blah. Whatever her issues, I didn't want to get involved. She ends up icing everyone out, including her boyfriend and me. The messed up cherry on top was that the boyfriend's dad had a terminal illness for a while and was declining during this period. During this, he sadly passed away. I was there for him and she was not. When she found out about his passing, she goes on Facebook and is mad her BF didn't tell her and she found out through other people, basically making it about her. Mind you, she also had him blocked on Facebook. She then ends up blocking me, and I found out she makes a passive post saying how her BFF, me, and her boyfriend had something going on. Me and the boyfriend decided not worth confronting her and move on with their lives. Last I heard, she married and I think she had a kid with that cripple. She has since tried to reach out through mutual friends, but I immediately shut it down. So maybe she cut me off, but so glad the witch did. Story 22. Over time, I realized what a user and a narcissist she really was. I couldn't handle the double standards anymore. Her birthday, the world had to worship what she wanted, because it's her birthday. My birthday, I was supposed to go along with what she wanted it to be, even though she tried to plan a day of exactly what I specifically told her I hated about my birthday. Then called me a schmuck for not being excited because sometimes you just have to accept it and do things you don't want just for the others around you. Sadly, this was just the beginning. She always insisted we weren't a couple and she had no interest in such, but anytime I got together with another girl, her jealousy was off the charts, only overshadowed by her insistence that there wasn't any jealousy. I spent thousands in taking care of things for her that I shouldn't have, and she would buy me thrift store junk. I took on a remodeling project in her house, trying to mix it with a busy work schedule, and she whined to everyone who would listen about how I'm taking too long and I'm doing a crappy job. She apparently implied that she was making it worth my while, sleeping with me, to some, but never acknowledged that you get free work done when the person has time and smiled about it. The final straw, when I realized I was nothing but a resource for her, and said it made me uncomfortable. Her reaction was to apologize for me feeling that way, not for making me feel that way, and then behind my back go full on trying to trash me. Made up stories about me that were just crazy. Her biggest mistake was telling people lies that many people, sometimes the people she was lying to, had direct proof of the truth. It was also a sign to me that some of the people she thought were her best friends forever were some of the ones showing me text messages she was sending and telling me that she has done this many times over the years to many guys. She claims to be Miss Independent, but she can't do anything on her own. She gets by in life by bickering people. She has a good job but is in bad credit card debt due to her hoarding of good deals and habits. Yes, you can be a prescription medicine user. She claims to have every medical condition known to mankind, but it's only when someone is looking. She gets migraines when it rains, and only if she wants to get out of something. She claims a gluten allergy and lactose intolerance, but eats dairy and gluten constantly. She claims to have allodynia, but goes to see a massage therapist regularly. She cries foul at how she's her own person and can make her own choices, but forces her opinions on others all the time. And God forbid you enjoy something she doesn't. When her stepfather passed, she was the only person in the world who ever lost a loved one. When anyone else lost a loved one, she took it as a chance to tell everyone about how much she misses her stepfather. She only ever saw him when she needed something. Even though I'm already rambling here, this is just scratching the surface of what a piece of crap she really is. Cutting her out was the only choice. Story 23. She was my oldest friend. Everything we did was always what she wanted to do. Even going shopping, we only went to shops she wanted to. Then when I asked her to be my bridesmaid, she put obstacles and hurdles and everything. Wasn't happy that I found my dress in the first go. Asked to wear a burqa or wetsuit for a bridesmaid's dress. She's white British and doesn't follow any religion. Every dress me and my other bridesmaid had chosen had something wrong with it. Too short, too revealing, not enough detail, basically any excuse you can think of. And she said she only wanted a dress with sleeves because she had scars on her arms. You honestly couldn't see them. Didn't actually look for any dresses herself. Didn't want the shoes we chose because she wanted to wear Converse that had bridesmaid written on them at the cost of £140. I was paying for everything. I was not paying for shoes for her. Told me I should be buying her an expensive bracelet and necklace that would match my wedding ring and the necklace my husband bought for me. The day of my hen party, she said she couldn't come because she had a headache. Then a week before my wedding, told me she couldn't be a bridesmaid because her mental health wasn't in the right place. This was done over text, not even the courtesy of a phone call. I replied with okay. She has to do what's best for her and that I hope she would still come to the ceremony and reception as a guest. Never heard anything from her until the morning of the wedding when she texted that she had a great day. I was prepared to continue as friends. The final straw came when 3 days after my wedding she knew I was rushed into hospital. I got a text telling me I was a selfish friend. I'm never there for her. I didn't do anything to make her feel better about being a bridesmaid and letting her have the outfit she wanted. I gave my bridesmaids free rein to wear whatever they wanted as long as it was in the right color and didn't look ridiculous. I was a crappy friend because I hadn't even texted her after my wedding to see if she was okay. I just replied, well, sometimes you have to look after yourself and make yourself number one, a bit like you did with my wedding. Telling her I was done with playing the name show and to have a nice life. Blocked her number straight away. Didn't feel the need to read her reply if there was one. I haven't spoken to her or seen her since. Honestly, I haven't even missed her. And my husband, family, and friends have said I'm much happier without her in my life. They would always know when I'd seen or spoken to her as I'd start putting myself down a lot and questioning everything. Story 24. I had known her for a decade at this point, but we'd only been truly friends for 7 years. As adults, we discovered we lived close to each other, but she never wanted to come over to my place. I didn't mind going to hers, but sometimes I'd ask her to come to mine. She'd always ask for favors like, can I spend the night? I don't like walking alone at night. This would be fair if I didn't literally walk home from her place past midnight every time we hung out. It's a 5-minute walk in a safe area. What really took the cake was recently. After ghosting each other for months, we chatted again. We were both jobless, but had a side gig selling photos online. It's not much, but it's better than no income at all, so it comes in handy for buying food. I mentioned this in conversation, and a week later she asked to borrow $50. I denied her request, and she brought up that I had an income while she didn't. I informed her that I hadn't made much that month, only just enough to pay rent and buy cheap groceries. Her mother is her neighbor, and I suggested she ask her mother or her boyfriend. She said they both said no and thought to ask me. She'd asked for money in the past, and I usually obliged, but in this scenario, she knew I had very little money. She said she'd pay me back when she could and to help her out, and I said I was tired of her asking for money. She sent me a paragraph that essentially was her nice way of calling me selfish and how she was struggling. I told her that I didn't wish to continue our friendship anymore, saying how she usually contacted me when she wanted something and never hung out with me anymore. I had literally seen her twice in the previous 8 months. Said we were barely friends anymore at this point. She had no right to guilt trip me. She apparently complained to my girlfriend at the time about me and really made me seem like a villain. Showed my girlfriend the chat and she agreed that I could have been nicer about it. But she also agreed that it was weird that she texted asking for money after not hanging out since the previous year. My ex-friend has always been a very sweet person, but she's quite full of herself. I wish her the best, but I don't miss her. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.